second set of footsteps, half a mile after the last streetlight fell away. Out here, the road isn't a road so much as a promise that someone will eventually come along it. 2 lanes, cracked tar snakes, shallow ditches, where weeds lean in like eavesdroppers. My truck was in the shop again, so I took the late shift and started the walk home just after 9. The air had that dry, metallic cool you only get when the day finally lets go, and insects take over the silence. My own steps were familiar. Boot, boot, the scrape of the right heel I keep meaning to fix. The other pair was not. They matched me from far enough back that I couldn't feel breath or hear fabric, just the rhythm. When I slowed, they softened. When I lengthened, they stretched. Not a jogger, not a deer, not wind making a joke of gravel. A person who knew how to walk behind someone without being seen. I told myself a story to make it easy. Some kid from the feed mill heading the same way. Somebody who got off the last bus and liked the quiet too. I kept my eyes on the yellow line because I've learned that if you turn too soon, you gift the other person your fear. A road sign ticked and trembled. I counted telephone poles and tried not to give the night any more of me than my feet were already giving. At the bus shelter by the county turnoff, I ducked inside. The plexiglass, crazed with scratches, held the last light even when there wasn't much of it. I bent like I was tying a boot and watched the road in the reflection instead of turning my head. For a moment, there was only the low smear of the lane and the gray hint of the ditch. Then a darker shape paused 20 yards back, exactly where the weeds start to guard the asphalt. The next car spun a narrow ribbon of light, and for a second I saw a cap brim cut a clean angle out of the glow. Blue. The coat looked wrong until I noticed the sleeve, the left cuff hanging a touch too long, like a child holding onto a hem. The shape turned, not to me but to the light, and then the car was gone, and the night tucked the shape back in. I walked out. The steps came with me. We used to play a counting game. Count to 7, she'd say. Then look at me and forget what you were sad about. In the city it worked. Out here, 7 only carried me past the culvert toward the cottonwoods in the field of uncut grass. The first chalk mark was easy to miss. No bigger than a thumbnail, a white arrow tucked next to the center line, like a kid had leaned out of a back seat and rubbed the road with a piece of the sky. A second arrow came 40 yards later. Both pointed forward. I told myself a runner had marked a loop, or a road crew had chalked something invisible. I told myself a lot of things while I kept walking, and the steps behind me stayed 7 beats away. At the cottonwoods, I took the diagonal down the ditch, up the bank, along the field's edge where the dirt is so packed it nearly counts as a path. I hadn't used that shortcut in years. I didn't announce it. I just went. Behind me there was a pause, the math of someone deciding whether to follow, then the sound of an ankle sliding on grit and catching again. She knew the cut. She always hated being behind. A service lane parallels the old Highway 2 ruts, grass between, chain link on the right. I steadied myself on a post. The metal's cold lived in my palm like a warning. A car hissed by, and for a blink I had 2 shadows on the fence. Mine close, hers longer, head bowed under a cap as if listening. "Go home, Maya," I said to the dark, low enough that it could have been the wind. Keys clicked once against a ring. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. She used to rest her keys against her ring finger and make that tiny sound when she waited for me outside a store. Click, pause, click. The first time I heard it after I left the city, I had to sit down and let the memory pass through me like a fever. Tonight I kept walking. You don't offer your back to a game like that more than once. The lane spits you out at mile 17, where a sign leans on its stakes and a country store goes dark at 9, but leaves its soda machine humming for night drivers. I moved toward its light because somewhere inside me that still looks like safety. In the glass door, I watched myself arrive. A tired man, left shoulder riding high from old work. Face I didn't recognize at first. And behind me, at the cool edge of the light, she stood with her hands low and open, as if to show there was nothing in them. "You kept the road," she said, not loud, just enough to put words into the air we were both using. "I'm walking home," I said. I didn't turn. I spoke to the glass because cowardice has a look, and I could live with this version. "That's all this is. You're walking to me." She could have been reading a list. "Count to 7. I didn't. I fed cash into the machine, and bought a soda I didn't want, held the cold until my hand buzzed, then set the can on the step because it belonged more to the night than to me. When I started again, I chose the center line. Not because it's safe, it isn't, but because the ditch felt like a mouth and the shoulder felt like a hand. And if I kept the yellow beneath me, at least I could pretend there was a rope. Her steps followed, 7 back, no breath, no words. Maya could stretch an hour and leave a token at the end of it, a matchbook. A stone proofs that the world is a circle when you want it to be a cliff. Half a mile past the store, a white 7 in chalk sat on the edge of the asphalt, so clean it looked stenciled. I stepped over it because that felt like a choice. I told myself the old rules I give other people and never keep. The night pulled them thin until only breath and boot sound remained, and the 7 steps behind me stayed exact. At the dip, a guardrail takes up the job of pretending to protect you. I put my hand on it because I wanted the world to feel solid, and the rail shivered under my palm like a live thing. Far ahead, 2 points opened headlights coming over the low hill. They made the air thin and honest. In their lead light, I saw her clearly. Small, shoulders squared into the cold, cap brim set low enough to make a ridge where forehead should be, coat swallowing her frame like armor. The left sleeve still reached for the ground. "Stop following me," I said to the yellow line. "You're not hard to follow," she said to the space between us. "You never were." The car washed over us and drove the night a few yards down the road, then put it back. "Do you remember the river?" she asked after the hill, voice soft enough that the insects almost ate it. "When the wind came up and you put your back to me so I could use your jacket as a wall." "Yes," I said, because lying at this range felt like permission for more. "You didn't turn," she said. "I thought you were proud. Later I learned you were afraid." She fished where the hooks always are. Shame, duty, second chances. I let her sentences be weather. We walked our small weather forward together. A farm entrance sat to the left with a leaning gate and a yard light that thinks it's a star. I decided I would turn there, walk the gravel, knock on a door, and ask for help I couldn't name. I didn't announce it. I cut left at the break in the rail and went quick. The gravel announced me like a drum. It announced her a beat later. I had the chain in my hand when her voice arrived, closer than I wanted. "Don't," she said. "Not them. Don't make them part of us." I stood with the cold chain in my palm and felt how cheap we become when we perform our meannesses for an audience. I let the chain go. I stepped back onto the asphalt. I kept walking. We reached the long straight where the road admits it won't turn. My breath fogged. A sign rattled. A dog barked once and quit. "Talk to me, Mark," she said, and it hurt to hear my name in her mouth because names were places once. And I used to live in the one she gave me. "There's nothing to say," I told the line. "You left," she said. "That was something." "You broke things I needed," I said, surprising myself by letting a sentence go. "More than once. And when you were sorry like I should praise you for discovering it." She caught her breath on the edge of that and set it down gently. For a moment, I almost turned some part of me still wants to tend small hurts even when they've grown claws. But the point of 7 steps is that they belong to both people. One walks them, one gives them to you to walk. Past the county line, the road's skin changes. The older asphalt giving way to a patch that smells newer, even months after it's set. On the shoulder, a chalk arrow aimed toward the field, the diagonal I'd taken earlier. Under it, a neat little 7 circled like a rule. In the middle of the patch, a thin word sat so pale, it seemed the asphalt had breathed it up. "Listen." I stepped over it. I didn't want to know the next instruction. The sound that changed the shape of the night was a horn. Not close, not a warning. The long, flat statement of a semi easing toward the grade, crossing a mile up. The air in front of us pushed a little. I moved further onto the shoulder, because moving is the only way you can call what you're doing courage later. The truck grew from 2 stars to a set of rules. Headlamps, grill, the noise of 1,000 small parts agreeing to go in the same direction. A thought I'm not proud of came step out and end the test. It passed, leaving the kind of cold that makes quiet dangerous. I put my hand on the rail again and made a contract. When the truck reached us, I would step into its light, raise my palm, and make my body real to someone else. If she wanted to walk right up behind me into that, she could. Time grew out of its shoes. I could hear her breathing now. Not hard, not a run, just a steady pull that matched mine. When the truck finally widened the world, the long wind of it moved her coat against the back of my legs like a prayer I didn't want. I stepped into the lane and held my hand up. The horn gave a short sentence, the driver's way of telling a story without words. I see you. The flood of light made me an object. It made her one too. She stopped just outside the beam, always a foot off center, always asking you to close the gap. When the truck dropped us back into dark, something had changed. Light leaves proof. In the dust on the shoulder where she'd stood, the prints were clean, small. Heavier at the heel, the 7 steps between us were printed like a plan. Go home, I said, finally willing to be the villain in someone else's story. Home is where you walk, she said. The brim lifted a degree, not enough to give me eyes, just enough to admit faces exist. You hum when you think. You look at your boots when you lie. You hate that I know it. She wasn't wrong. Town's edge dark lay ahead, porch lights that flicker because people forget bulbs. I could have cut through scrub to save time, but stepping where the road offers no rules made my skin tighten. I kept the yellow close and let her keep her 7. I'd imagined speeches for our ending. Reality was smaller, a note that sounded like confession and dare, and her choosing to hear only the part that meant I still listened. Back at mile 17 from the other side, the soda machine hummed like a small star. A moth tapped the plastic. The world felt fragile. Talk to me, she said again, softer. You're hurting me, I said, because I'd saved it for last, hoping it would change shape by morning. That's not what this is, she said quick. It is, I said. It is this. Silence held. Then the round edge in her voice, the one that asked without pretending. I have a place off County B Coffee. You don't have to stay. You could... No, I said, and didn't lace it with kindness. There wasn't any, that wasn't a lie. Keys clicked once. Somewhere a bird made the wrong sound for night and stopped, ashamed of being alive in the wrong hour. I turned a little enough to prove I could. The brim took my movement and refused me eyes. In the road she looked small, a thing the highway had shaped as a joke about proportion. Don't follow me past Chandler's, I said. That's the line. You don't own lines, she said, not unkind. I own this one, I said, and the sentence fit my mouth like something I should have been saying for years. We walked, 7 behind, she walked 2. Mr. Chandler's place sits behind a white fence. He opens to pounding and saves questions for morning. Remembering that made the last half-mile possible. Before the gate, before the mailbox that leans like it's tired of holding strangers' names, she stopped. No trick, the quiet went honest. She had actually done it. Stopped, letting me make the last 100 yards without the measure of her steps. I didn't look back. I didn't need the gift ruined by a face finally shown. The motion light woke slow. My hand reached the door. From the road, the night assembled one more sentence and handed it to me. I'll walk behind you until I'm tired of being behind, she said. Then I'll walk ahead. Not a threat, a fact arranged like kindness. I knocked anyway. The door opened. Light made the world small. Chandler said my name like good men do when they aren't afraid of it. In the morning, I gave the sheriff my statement, time, place, cap, sleeve, chalk. The deputy nodded and said the paper might help if she ever stands where a badge can meet a face. I changed my route. Bought a cheap bike. Some nights I outrun the counting. Some nights the second shadow keeps up. A week later, near the culvert, a chalk circle with a slash crossed the center line. Dust lifted when I passed. I sleep enough. On some mornings, a small thing waits by my door. A matchbook, a river stone, a low-angle Polaroid of a road with a pair of feet just stepping in. I file what they ask. I answer the questions. I do the dull, brave things. It helps until it doesn't. Tonight, on the way back from the shop where my truck sits with its guts clean and new, I stop at the county store and let the soda machine hum in my bones. On the step, someone has drawn a small white 7 neat enough to pass for a letter you forgot to read. I step over it. The crickets tune. The road opens. Somewhere behind me, a person places one foot and then another and measures out the night like a careful seamstress. I keep the yellow line close, not because it saves me, but because it gives my eyes a thing to follow while I try not to hear the counting. 7 is just a number, I tell myself. Roads are roads, not traps. People are people, not storms. I can walk anywhere and be only a man walking. Behind me, the steps stay 7 slow, patient as weather. They always stay 7, until the moment they don't.